Hello ladies, gentlemen, and others. My name is Dan, the voice behind that Kaito Dan, and here's something different. I haven't done videos on traditional anime before, though that is something I want to fix in due time. But I simply had to do so now because recently we got the unveiling of a new anime adaptation for my favorite anime and manga of all time, Ranma 1/2. First debuting in manga form in 1987, with the anime coming only 2 years later, and created by legendary mangaka Rumiko Takahashi, known for her other iconic works like Urusei Yatsura, Maison Ikkoku, and Inuyasha, Ranma 1/2 is the story of Ranma Saotome, a young martial artist who is betrothed to one of the daughters of his father's friend, the chosen fiancé being Akane Tendo. Thing is, on top of a very rough start for the pair, Ranma also recently fell into a cursed spring during a training trip with his dad, causing Ranma to turn into a girl when splashed by cold water and back to a boy when it's hot. As you can imagine, hijinks ensue, whether it's Ranma and Akane's, no pun intended, hot and cold yet slowly blooming relationship, Ranma dealing with his curse, the slew of other love interests chasing after him, Akane, and Ranma's girl side, or the metric ton of wild fights that involve other cursed individuals, insanely skilled martial artists, and just some really crazy folk. And it made for a truly entertaining experience that even now is loved by fans all over the world, including myself. Now, if you couldn't tell by my voice, I'm a Brit, and I grew up in the era where we got anime here or there on TV, like your Dragon Balls, your Pokemon, Digimon, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptors, etc, etc, but anime itself wasn't really a known concept in my neck of the woods, unless you actively searched beyond mainstream TV selections. As such, it wasn't until YouTube came around and I first saw the word anime in tags for Pokemon vids that I first discovered anime proper. A couple of times spotting Ranma and company in a bunch of AMVs later, and I soon began watching and reading what would go on to become not just my favorite series and my gateway into anime and manga, but also a series that has had a huge impact on me personally, opening the doors that led me to making great friends and loved ones, discovering fandubs which I based my first channel on, including, yes, some Ranma fandubs which I believe by now have mostly been lost to time. Probably for the best. If not for Ranma, I wouldn't have some of the friends and interests I do now, nor would I have gotten started on making videos when I did, which, as you can see, I'm still doing now. Ranma 1/2 truly is an impactful series, and that's only in regards to talking about myself. With its colourful cast, bombastic fights, charming laughs, and endearing emotional moments, there was something for everyone in Ranma 1/2, and that led to it becoming a massive hit that has left its mark in ways few other series could dream of. Pretty much what Dragon Ball did for shonen action and Sailor Moon did for magical girl anime, Ranma 1/2 is often credited as the series that popularized and established the core appealing traits of the standard anime harem formula, and it's still one of the best in the genre all these years later. Ranma 1/2 was also a massive influence in terms of the early anime boom over in the West, thanks to it being one of the first big hits for their distributor, Viz Media. Even now, its influence remains strong, with works like Scott Pilgrim, Shantae, and movies like Your Name and Turning Red all having been inspired by Ranma in some way. However, the anime was one of those classic examples of a series that never got a full adaptation of its source material. It ran alongside the manga, and oftentimes the anime had to make original stories just to give it some time, and the quality of said stories ranged from great to, shall we say, way below par. So eventually it was decided to conclude the anime early and, save for a few OVAs, a short film, and more recently a live action special, that was it, with the manga eventually ending about 4 years later. And I, among many fans, have been dreaming of the day that we could get a new anime that not only covered the unadapted arcs, but also was a more faithful adaptation that addressed the original anime's shortcomings to create the truest Ranma 1/2 animated experience. It wouldn't even be the first Takahashi work to get a return, as just recently Urusei Yatsura ended its remake, and Inuyasha got both its own unadapted final act finally animated, and an original sequel anime. Yet even in this current age of numerous classics either getting remakes or long-awaited continuations, I never felt truly 100% confident a new Ranma anime would happen, especially the more and more the years rolled on. But recently, rumors that weren't going away kept popping up, and lo and behold, just last month, it was announced that a new Ranma anime would soon be revealed, complete with a first look trailer. Now, I'm not going to play the trailer because YouTube is YouTube and I don't want to run any copyright risk, but you can find it in the description down below to watch yourself. And when you're done, why not share your thoughts about it in the comments down below? Well, as for me, and what I feel after watching it, dude, we've never been more back. I am so happy how this is already looking. The eye-catching colors, the quick yet fluid animation, the charming expressions, the way it still feels very classic in its directive touches, character details and so on, just with modern animation quality. Genuinely, after watching it for the first time, I was bouncing. Just so happy that it already looks this good, even in just this sample taste of what's to come later this year. And that's the big thing too. This series starts on October the 5th, first for Japanese TV broadcast, and then on Netflix immediately after. Thankfully suggesting, like recent Netflix anime releases, they're not going to drop this all at once, and we can enjoy some Ranma 1/2 goodness week to week. Though, with it being Netflix, this does still worry me in terms of getting a physical release, as they often tend to not do so with some of the shows they pick up. Lord knows it's already hard enough just to get the original series in English, but here's hoping that it is going to be an issue that is avoided either by them or some third-party distributor, like Viz Media, since again, they distributed the original, and on top of confirming they got the Western streaming rights for the remake at SDC, they're also going to be hosting a worldwide premiere of the first episode on August the 24th at Anime NYC, for all those lucky buggers, not including me, who attend there. Focusing back on what the trailer actually showed, one of the most striking details without a doubt is the colors. There's a lot more vibrant shades and less saturation across the board, and certainly more bright than we saw often in the original anime, though if anything, it's much closer to how colors were often used at times for the manga. And with this remake set to adapt much closer to the source material, right down to seemingly more common use of manga panel-like onomatopoeia text, I think it's safe to assume that the folks behind this new adaptation, which I'll get to in a second, definitely want this to feel more like a true animated adaptation of the manga beyond just the story. And I welcome this approach. It'll certainly help the remake visually stand out more next to its older brother, but you can still tell that it's not just to be different. There's still a consideration for the emotive tones at play in the moment. Just by the trailer alone, it's easy to see how the remake's color palette, the right lighting, and use of shadows can allow the cast and the scene's energy to blend together and create some beautiful shots. Like how in this shot with the warm glow of the light shining on the warmly colored Kasumi works perfectly for her soft, caring expression. Or how in the opening fight between Ranma and Genma, it looks more intense than most of the other fighting scenes we see because of the way the shadows are more prominent by comparison. The darker shading popping up against the bright colors, adding an air of seriousness to the action, making the fact that the fight is between a young girl and a giant panda that much more absurdly funny. And if that's the kind of strong visual directing we're going to be getting from this anime using these choices in colors and shading, then yes, I'm all for it. Speaking of colors as well, Ranma's girl side has gone from a deep red color for her hair to a more pinkish red, again much like we sometimes saw in official manga colorings. and I quite like it. I'm always going to be more partial to the deep red just out of nostalgia and personal preference, but this is still a color choice that I vibe with, and I'm glad that at least they didn't opt back to the initial plan of the hair remaining black regardless of the gender, as the difference adds to the transformation aspect and complements Akane's blue hair very well. Plus, the red look is so iconic by now, it would be a step backwards rather than improvement in the eyes of the fans if they went any further than just a shift to a different shade of red. I do wonder though, when it comes to the visuals, how much they may tone down the amount of nudity we'll see, as there was quite the abundance of boobs in full display in both the manga and anime that might not fly these days. The trailer itself seems to suggest that a few early scenes might be directed differently to hide things, but for later scenes where you can't just zoom in, I'm curious to see how they may handle that if there is to be any major censoring. Personally, I'm not bothered either way. The nudity before was largely tasteful rather than sexual. In fact, most times it was there just for the sake of showing Ranma's carefree nature when they're in their girl form, save for the times it's addressed deeper. But still, it is going to be something worth speculating on with this new modern series. Now it's about time that I actually mention, well, who is animating this? That being Studio Mappa, most known for their work on Jujutsu Kaisen, the final Attack on Titan season, Season 2 of Vinland Saga, and Chainsaw Man. And while that at first certainly isn't a lineup that would make you think they'd be the right types for a lighter tone martial arts rom-com harem like Ranma, in fact, I know a lot of people were hoping that it would be David Production after they excelled already with the Urusei Yatsura remake, but the folks at Mappa have done more than intense kinetic action series. They've also shown their range with Yuri on Ice, Zombieland Saga, co-producing Kids on the Slope, and they're also working on the upcoming Rosa Versailles film. So I would trust them to best understand how to animate bombastic comedy, solid heartfelt romantic scenes, and slower dramatic moments as good as they would flashy combat. That said, it is a little tricky to be fully glowing about Mappa's inclusion on this production, as they have faced a lot of scrutiny lately, largely around their workload. Beyond concerns of how any issues may affect the remake's quality, I hope in the time since these complaints were first raised that things have improved for the staff there, but it's hard to say for sure as an outsider. I do still want to express joy in what we've seen so far, and may that remain moving forward. I just hope it doesn't come with a major cost to those behind it. On that note, let's actually talk about some of the names behind this production. It's being directed by Konosuke Uda, who most notably was a director during the early seasons of One Piece, as well as the 4th and 7th films. Not a bad pick I feel, since One Piece also excels in its larger-than-life characters with quirky personalities and bonkers yet gripping fights with unique skills, so I reckon he's a great fit for Ranma. Delicious in Dungeon's script composition writer Kimiko Ueno will fulfill the same role for this, and while I am sad that the composer for the original anime's amazing soundtrack, Kenji Kawai, isn't back for this, I am excited who is going to be composing music for the remake, Kaoru Wada, who did music for Inuyasha and the orchestral arrangements for the Kingdom Hearts games. By those two series alone, I am fully on board for what he brings, and just from the tune that is heard in the trailer, he's already on course of delivering the right kind of energy befitting the series with fitting Chinese instrumentation, so I'm willing to bet that this remake's OST is going to be full of bangers just like the OG. Also in terms of the opening theme, it's going to be sung by Anno, who I personally have little history listening to, but after this was announced, I did check out her song for the 7th ending of Chainsaw Man, and she has a very good singing voice, almost sounding like Shampoo singing from the old Ranma vocal songs sung by some of the cast. So hey, if that's the vibe they're going for at least for this first opening, I'm excited to see what she brings. And keeping on the topic of the audio, let's finally talk about one of the biggest talking points catching people's attention, the voice cast, as heading into this reveal, we had no clue if any of the old Japanese cast that's still active would return. But thankfully, the grand majority of the main cast are indeed coming back. This includes Kappei Yamaguchi as Ranma's male side, Megumi Hayashibara as female Ranma, and Noriko Hidaka as Akane, with all three of them also being at the event as well. These three I am so glad to see return. I love all of the Japanese casts nearly as much as I adored the English dub, but Yamaguchi, Hayashibara, and Hidaka especially did such a good job as the three leads that it would be weird to hear anyone else when they're still active voice actors capable of repeating their strong quality. It's especially pleasing to see them back because these were among their very first voice roles, so I'm sure this is going to feel like a nice full circle moment for them. And they also really championed a Ranma return just as much as us fans. So it's great news that they're going to be back behind the mic and ready to once again give it all for this series that they clearly love as much as we do. Here's the rest of the returning Japanese cast that was announced, with some of them even being heard in the trailer like Kasumi and Nobiki. Though two voices that we heard that were new was for Son and Genma, which surprised me. Their original voice actors, Ryusuke Obayashi and Kenichi Ogata respectfully, are still active. Heck, Ogata is even on the new cast as the narrator. But the new voice actors, Akio Otsuka and Cho, do sound perfectly fine so far, so I trust it won't be a sizable downgrade if anything. There was also no word yet on new voice actors for the roles of Happosai, Ukyo, Tatiwari Kuno, and Cologne, all of whom we do know will be different as their original voice actors have sadly passed away. We also don't know about Moose and Kadachi's voice actors, despite them being alive and active, plus the characters being featured in the promo art, but I imagine that'll come in future updates. Now, while it wasn't a talking point at all in the reveal event, I do want to share my thoughts on a possible English dub. As I said before, I adored that old English dub, more so than the Japanese one even. It's insanely good quality that still holds up even now, which is wild to think given dubbing quality back then wasn't really as strong as it is now, or at least commonly so, and a lot of the main cast were either rookies or teens. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen that one clip of Ranma and Akane with the animal crackers, but let me assure you, the dub is great stuff from top to bottom across its lifetime. However, I do hold little hope that the Japanese cast return will be matched by the English dub, for a few reasons. A lot of the main cast, including the first male Ranma voice and Akane's voice actress, likely won't be coming back either due to retirement, having passed away, or some other specific reason. Furthermore, the only way we can get most of the old active voice talent back is if the dub is once again produced in Canada. If it's produced in America, well, it's certainly possible. It's going to be very rare exceptions, and as it turns out, it looks like that's going to be the case, as someone spotted on the SAG-AFTRA signatory search a big clue that suggests that the dub is going to be done by Ayuno, which is mainly based in Los Angeles and has worked on past Netflix distributed series before, like Beastars, Devilman Crybaby, Pluto, and a lot of the recent Pokemon animated series. This hasn't been officially confirmed yet, so take it with a grain of salt, but if it is Ayuno, it is worth noting that they have been open to bringing back old talent for a role before. Like with the final Ash run of Pokemon, they had the old voices of Cylan and Tracy return. But again, these tend to be outliers, not the norm, and these didn't have to contend with the America-Canada hurdles that I believe would be present here. I certainly would love it if some of the active old cast did make a return, like Richard Ian Cox, Vernis Terzo, Kelly Sheridan, and David Kay, him especially even being on the talent pool for Ayuno. But all these circumstances, and Ayuno seemingly keeping themselves largely to their already deep talent roster across America, has me already accepting the idea that the remake's dub will be pretty much all new. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. With how many amazing voice actors are out there these days, whoever gets to work on the remake, I'm confident they will give it their all to knock it out of the park. Especially after seeing a lot of voice actors also among us fans geeking out when this was first announced. One last topic of discussion that I do want to share is in regards to how much of the manga I think will be adapted this time round. With 38 volumes and over 407 chapters to pull from, with a handful of storylines, perhaps not having enough material to fit even one episode without it getting expanded, I reckon we could probably get about 5, maybe 6 seasons worth of episodes by today's standards, helped by the fact that Ranma 1/2 is fairly episodic in its narrative, rather than one long ongoing story, so they can make some mini minor arc cuts without much issue if they feel the need. Either way, it does still mean that it's likely we will have to wait for the second half of seasons for the bulk of the untouched material to come, which might take a while, unless we're going for a massively abridged lineup of a select few stories for the sake of time and money, similar to what Urusei Yatsura just did. And personally, out of the two options, I would prefer a longer run. The more Ranma we get, the better. And with how long it's been since the original, and with also how different a lot of things will look, even the reused material will feel fresh. So there's bound to be plenty to enjoy even as a long-time fan before we get to the wider stretch of unadapted material. As for that untapped content, the original anime only covered up to volume 22, leaving 16 volumes of material to pull from, with a lot of it being among the best of the series because of its fights, its feels, or the funnies. So there's plenty to be excited for should the majority of it get adapted. One big plot thread that I'm especially eager to see in anime form at long last is everything involving Ranma's mother, Nodoka, as the original anime ended just as she made her long-awaited debut, meaning fans of the show missed out on one of the more heartfelt narratives of the series that then had to be remaining as manga exclusive. There's also a lot of beloved and important characters we simply have to bring into the animated spotlight at long last, including Kanatsu, Akari, Ryu, Rouge, Herb, and Saffron. If we reach the end of this adaptation and even one of these guys don't appear, I will find that very surprising and disappointing. For me, regardless of the format, this anime has to have that perfect balance of old and new. If it's not a near complete adaptation and some stuff has to get passed over for one reason or another, then I'll be mostly content if it means that what we do get is still most of the characters and plot threads that we want, and what works out to help make this the best possible adaptation of Ranma yet. Nothing else, please, please, please don't let this whole project end without us finally getting that final act. I can't wait another near double decade just to see a Ranma 1/2 anime that has that ending it should. But with that, I think that's all I want to discuss for now, except for one last question. Would you guys like to see me do reviews and maybe even reactions to the remake when it drops this October? I've never done such videos for a proper anime before, but this is certainly a great excuse to start. So let me know if that's something that you might be interested in, as well as any of your other thoughts that you have on what I discussed, and the fact that yes indeed, Ranma is finally back, and I cannot wait. Don't forget as well to hit the subscribe and bell buttons to get every new video from me as they drop, and follow me on my socials for updates on the channel and more from yours truly. But that's all for now, so until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.